NMLS number 65084, equal housing lender. Woo!
As an adult, don't we all miss spring break? Nothing like taking a week off from all your responsibilities. Well, here's the next best thing for adults, a spring break from house payments. SaveWithConrad.com can help you get rid of all your credit card debt, just like that. We're routinely helping our listeners save $500, $600, $700, even $800 a month. And you don't need perfect credit or money out of your pocket to do this, but check this out, no house payments for 2 months at SaveWithConrad.com.
Welcome to Something to Wrestle with.
with.
Bruce Prichard.
Well, you know.
Hey, it's Conrad Thompson, and you're listening to Something to Wrestle with Bruce Prichard. Bruce, what's going on, man? How are you?
Just watch Fluffy Ducks, my God.
I am so excited to be recording with you today. We're going to be talking about one of our favorite topics. I love talking about WWF in 1989, and that's what we'll be talking about
here,
today.
Man.
I'm going to find out this weekend because
it's going to be really cold, wet, and snowy this weekend.
I already looked. I'm going to be
like Dave Silva's. Anyway,
I'm going to be all sweatered up this weekend. I'm going to make a rare Northeast appearance, rare for me. But today, the day we're recording, it's a very special day in the history of your life. Bruce Prichard, ladies and gentlemen, 60 years old. Happy birthday, Bruce. Happy birthday to you.
Happy birthday to me.
Is this your halfway point of your life, you think? You're going to go to 120?
Shit, most people didn't think I'd make 28, much less 120.
At your level of celebrity and income and the advances in technology, I think you could do it. You could get to 120.
120, all right.
I like it.
Let's go for it. So this would be like kind of my midlife crisis, time to shake some things up.
Well, let's keep the podcast. Let's keep Amber. Let's keep Stephanie. We can talk about Kane. But yeah, let's shake up some other things if you want.
Yeah, I'm a Dateline guy. I watch a lot of Dateline. I watch a lot of 48 Hours, 2020, and things like that. So here's my thing. Here's my theory. This is a simple ask, too. I thought it was a simple ask. Yeah, I just asked my wife, can you draft a letter stating that if anything were ever to happen to you, unusual circumstances that may result in your death, then it was definitely not me.
Right. That'd be great.
And or Amber. I need help. No, it's just, what about Kane? I said, yeah, he'll be all right.
Kane will be.
I mean, that's a good thing. You should do that too. You should look into this. This is something I want. I want to maybe start a company that, protects the spouse, particularly the husband. That, like a significant other can sign and say, yeah, no, man, my significant other would never do anything to me like this. Like put antifreeze in my coffee or anything like that. That was the one I watched the other day.
My goodness gracious. Well, we're starting off a birthday episode pretty damn dark. Let's lighten the mood here.
That's not dark. I'm giving advice. I'm giving life advice. It's, I would say pro tips, but that'd probably be too much. But no, it's just life advice. Sometimes you got to think outside of the box. Everybody writes letters. Says, anything happens to me, it was CONRAD.
All right, wait a minute now. Whoa. Let's calm down. No, I need you around. No.
But if, just saying, could be you.
I don't know about that. I don't even know your exact address. I know I should know it, but I'll find out.
Yeah, you should. I know your exact address.
Well, you've been here many times.
Yeah. I
can't wait to see your new place.
I even put in the southeast in there when I know your thing.
Oh, look at you, the directional.
Yeah.
Well,
I shipped a lot of things to myself there.
Yes, you have. Well, we know what we're talking about today. Your sweatshirt tells the story. It's WrestleMania season, boys and girls. And this is one of our most requested topics. We have talked about the main event storyline ad nauseum here on the show because we both just love the nuanced storytelling. But we're going to talk about the whole show today from WrestleMania V in 1989. We just recently discussed the 89 Royal Rumble just last month, so be sure to check that one out. That's sort of the the prelude or prelude, if you will, to the show. But before we get into that, the idea of having WrestleMania at the same location 2 years in a row, this was a big deal. I don't think we would see this in the more modern era, but back to back, we're in Atlantic City at the Trump Plaza. How did that come to be?
It was profitable and it was close, and the deal was the right deal. It wasn't, where you were having to go out and rent a building or anything. This was the first time that we had, another venue or a venue come to us and say, man, I want WrestleMania. I want WrestleMania in my venue. And here's what we're going to do for you to make it more attractive for you to come to Atlantic City, and in particular, Trump Plaza. So they made us a nice deal, and we did it. We did it again for the second year in a row.
It's maybe my favorite WrestleMania memory as a kid. This and 6 are two of my absolute favorites. And we get this season sort of kicked off after the Rumble. We start putting all their hype into the second live Friday night prime time main event special on NBC.
The main event.
There you go. To explain, this isn't Saturday night's main event, which we've been doing since, 85. But on the build to WrestleMania 4 the year before, we did the whole evil twin referee thing with Andre the Giant and Hulk Hogan in prime time on NBC. So we're going to start really trying to double down and do that here again in 1989. Did you think just the creative and the intrigue in that matchup on the heels of WrestleMania 3s were launching towards WrestleMania 4 with Hogan and Andre? Did you think there was any chance that an NBC special here in 89 could compete and touch that record-breaking audience you had a year before?
I thought that there was potential. I didn't think we would break that record because it was Hulk and Andre, and that matchup was so unique and had such a special feel to it. However, being in prime time and having wrestling for the first time in so many years, the year before we were live and it had been 50 years, whatever the hell it had been, long time. And now to do it again, the second year in a row and go live on network television, that was a huge step. So you're thinking just the novelty of it alone, we were hoping would draw viewers to it. The attraction was not nearly as strong as Hulk and Andre, but it was still an intriguing event. And I think that people following the story of Hulk and Randy were intrigued to see what was going to happen next.
I was pumped for this. It happened Friday, February 3rd, 1989 at the Bradley Center in Milwaukee. And the big headline main event here on NBC is going to be the Mega Powers, Hulk Hogan and Randy Savage, taking on the Twin Towers, the Big Boss Man and Akeem. We already talked about that match back on our Mega Powers episode in the archives. But after slowly teasing it ever since WrestleMania 4, the Mega Powers are finally going to explode, if you will. The match itself is over 22 minutes long, but it's really a backdrop for the impending soap opera type storyline we're about to see. As we know, Savage is thrown through the ropes and he lands on Miss Elizabeth, and Hogan is going to carry her to the back of the first aid room for medical attention. And Savage sees this going on as he's getting beat up in the ring, and he feels like he gets deserted by his partner. And we, of course, have the famous moment where Hogan is by Liz's side on the gurney, and he's got these Oscar-worthy acting skills, if you will, begging and pleading for Liz to wake up and be okay. And he's also asking someone off camera for the tiz-is-I'm and someone to give me a countdown, brother, because he thinks they're still in a commercial. But this is all, of course, shown live on the air, and Vince on commentary is going to try to quickly start talking to try to cover it up. Are you pulling your hair out when all this is happening? Is this the stress and pressure of live TV in prime time?
Yeah, this is, yes. First of all, it's live television. Absolutely nothing can go wrong, ever.
It was meant to be.
Live TV. It was meant to be, damn it. But when you're watching this and you have people look, the NBC folks came in, and the NBC folks came in for a post-produced show for Saturday night's main event. Excellent at what they did, excellent at post-production, excellent at putting shows together. I learned an awful lot from them. Also very good at live, but they weren't good at live sports entertainment. So what they thought they knew, they would forget because they just assume, I don't know, man, but it was not the greatest. Because, on top of not keeping Hulk informed of, hey, man, we're coming back from commercial in so many seconds and be working, you had sending Beefcake in too soon to, to go in and get Savage off of Hulk. And then, well, I know what we'll do. We'll just take his shirt off of him. So you'll forget about that guy that was in a shirt 5 seconds ago. So yeah, it was, I believe this was in Milwaukee.
Yep.
And I had done a Rougeau match, Rougeau versus the Hearts as a special referee. I'm going to apologize now because I got a cough and it's eating me up right now. But I had already worked, but I'm still in my Brother Love stuff, and I'm running around with a headset, still in Brother Love gear. And I remember as they came around the corner to shoot Hulk, there I am at the end of the hall with my headset on and everything, and about had a conniption fit because they were shooting down the hall. And you can't see Brother Love with a headset. Oh my God! It was just a little crazy, but this had to be, I think, even looking at all the live television we've done since then, possibly one of the sloppiest live productions that we ever did. Because we just let too many other people be involved.
There you go. Eventually, Liz does wake up, and she tells her,
God! Oh my God! I was afraid she was still asleep, and that Hulk was still there.
It was touch and go.
Yeah, it was.
Well, she tells Hogan, go back out there and help Randy. So Hulk does just that. But instead of getting a tag into the match from Savage, he's met with a huge slap to the face, and Savage jumps out, and he goes to the back to see Elizabeth himself. Of course, eventually, Hulk Hogan does what he does, and he wins the match. But then he goes back to the first aid room to a pissed off Savage berating Liz. Savage immediately tells Hogan he's out of line, and he's got jealous eyes, and he sees the lust in his eyes for Miss Elizabeth. Savage is also saying that Hogan is jealous of him because he's the champion, and if he would dare to come to him man to man for the belt, that would be okay. I would beat you 1, 2, 3. And we've discussed this whole scenario in length. So listen, I know we don't necessarily talk about current stuff, but it's hard not to see some parallels with modern storylines. Like when a storyline works, it's one that you can probably apply in different places and different times and different universes, and the story will still work because it's a great story, right?
I believe that whenever you're able to drop nuggets along the way that you can then go back and refer to, that is the beauty of a great storyline. When we had SummerSlam, we had Survivor Series, we had the Rumble, we had the main event, and they were all little nuggets of different things that you could see through both sides. There's a great show on Showtime. It's called The Affair, and it takes the point of view of both the man having the affair who's married and is having an affair, and the woman who is also married and she's having an affair with this guy. But you see it through his eyes, and it's one way. You see it through her eyes, and it's completely different. That's what was so beautiful about this story. Exact same scene, seen through Randy's eyes. It was, he had lust in his eyes. This guy was really worried about my title, but he was in love with Miss Elizabeth. Can you believe that? Yeah. You had lust in your eye. You never wanted to be friends. You never wanted to be partners. You just wanted Elizabeth. Hogan on the other side. Look, brother, we're such good friends, brother, that I was worried about her, man. We became friends, man. We were the mega powers, brother. And you could see it through both sets of eyes. And both had a point. Both made sense. So there was no real good guy or bad guy. there was just difference of opinion that happens every single day when you don't get the full story, if you will. And that was the beauty of this story. It just, little things happened all along, and it built up and built up and built up until Randy finally exploded. And Hulk could look at it from an innocent point of view, like, brother, I was doing it for us. You were doing it with lust in your eye, brother. Yeah. So that was the beauty of this whole story. It happens with people. It happens with friends every day.
Hogan turns to Liz to try to ask her to talk some sense into Randy, but then Savage hits Hogan in the head with the title belt. He's going to drop some punches on Hulk while he's down on the floor. Liz eventually gets up off the gurney to try to check on Hogan, and Savage yells at her to get out of the way or he'll splatter her with the belt.
That's right.
He grabs her.
Back when things were done right. Like when Dave Silva, anyway, we were talking about that earlier about what he did yesterday, but go ahead.
Well, there's paperwork involved. He's going to grab her here, shove her down to the floor. And Brutus Beefcake and some of the agents, Pat Patterson, Terry Garvin, and Nick Bockwinkel, they all come in, and Savage leaves, and the show goes off the air with Hogan searching the backstage area, screaming for Randy, shoving around the Hart Foundation and the Rockers and the Process. And this live special on NBC on Friday night in prime time does an 11.6 Nielsen rating. We had 19.9 million viewers watch it. It's unbelievable. And just in a vacuum, you would think, well, could we have bigger success? But it is a little down from the prior year. 33 million watched it a year prior, but still 19.9 million, man. This is rare air for wrestling or content of any sort.
Not bad.
Not bad.
Not bad.
In fact, it's the lowest rated of the night on NBC and one of the lowest for the season in the 8 p.m. Friday night time slot on NBC. So I'm sure that NBC may have been a little disappointed, but compared to the ratings you guys could get through syndication or USA, et cetera, there's really no comparison to broadcast. And I know that television and media have all changed, but man, here in the 80s, being on broadcast TV, there was nothing comparable to that, right?
No, it was, everybody had it. So you had your three, later on four, major stations, 5 when you count PBS, and a lot of people, that's all they had. Even going into 1988, 1989, that a lot of people still didn't have cable.
Right.
The penetration wasn't what it is now, where you just sign up for cable, everybody's got it. So that was their main source of entertainment, was the broadcast television, and people still looked at broadcast as, that's where all the good stuff happens, type thing. So 19 million households to be able to watch that was a big deal, regardless of where it fell in the ratings or anything like that. That was still a success.
Let's talk a little bit about, how this is going to be different. Usually Hulk Hogan has been the champion. It's been a babyface territory, as they like to say. He's fending off these mean, evil, giant, heel, nasty giants, whatever. But now it's a little different, because now we've got Hulk Hogan chasing. So on our way to this, of course, we're going to do a series of promos from both Hulk Hogan and the Macho Man. The Macho Man is going to build his case, and they're very cleverly done. As you've pointed out, you're going to see those little nuggets. We're going to tease what happened at SummerSlam, or maybe Hulk was getting a little too touchy-feely with Liz. We're going to have isolated video from Survivor Series of maybe, once again, Hogan getting a little too touchy-feely with Liz. Hogan's going to respond to that and add context and say basically, hey, I was your friend. You're blowing this out of proportion. But it's unique that we see someone questioning the character and integrity of Hulk Hogan. And it's even more unique that Hulk's not just fending off everybody to defend his title. He's the guy chasing. Did you enjoy this style of booking and creative and build and process more so than a babyface champ?
It depends. I think that's how I was brought up. was you always had the heel champion, and you always were grooming the baby face to face the heel champion.
Right.
So for me, it was kind of second nature, but then I had kind of gotten used to the Hogan stuff, and it's a difference in psychology. But the beauty of this was we shot all their promos for the entire promotion in one day. And being able to, if you want to go back and say, when was the first time, you really started scripting and writing out promos, this may be the best example, at least from my point of view, because I had every single one written out, not verbatim of what they were going to say, but of every point to hit in each one of these. Randy's side of it, Hulk's side of it, Randy's side of it, Hulk's side of it, and be able to tell that all the way through, and then be able to go back and show the footage to reinforce it. And sometimes we had the reversal. We had the reverse ISO that showed the shot from a different angle, so that you see what Randy sees, but then you see from the other side what actually happened. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
No, Hulk didn't grab her ass. No, man, he picked her up underneath her legs. Everything was good. But from Randy's perspective, it looks like, hey, man, he's going in. That son of a bitch. And I think that those were just so important, but literally had the whole thing laid out for them. I think it was either 4 or 6 weeks worth of promos that we did in one day. And so Randy would do his, Hulk would do his, and answer it right away. So that it was fresh in their head, so they didn't have to go back and watch them. They sat there and listened to each other and responded immediately. If Randy came up with something new on his own, you need to hit that. And they both were so good. And that was some of the best stuff, best build, because people could now go back and go, I remember that, but I didn't see it that way. Oh, shit, look, they've got a shot from behind where Hulk has his hand on her butt. But then from the side, does he? So it made you ask questions, and it made you have to look at it from both sides, that's great when people can do that.
So you had those ISO shots ready to show them as you're shooting this?
Yes.
And
oh yeah, we had everything ready for them.
So they could actually see what they're going to be talking about and what the final product would look like. And
exactly.
I know that.
And where Hulk could say, well, hang on, brother, take a look at it. There's another angle of this,
yes.
and have his. Randy wouldn't see that.
Right.
Randy doesn't care what Hulk's angle is.
Yes.
I saw what I saw, and I saw lust in your eyes. The lust in your eyes went to your hand that grabbed your ass. Uh-huh.
So talk to me a little bit about how these are produced. I mean, you said that they're in the same room doing them back to back. Who else is in the room? Did you have a favorite cameraman you like to do these with?
No, we did these at the studio.
Okay.
These are all done at the studio. We did it. Yeah, I couldn't tell you who the hell. Bubba Dean was my favorite cameraman back in the day, but no, he had nothing to do with these. These were just all locked down, shot in the studio on 2 sets, and done through Master Control.
So it's you, it's Vince, it's Hogan, and Savage.
I don't even think Vince was there.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
You said this is really the first time there were quote unquote scripted promos. Not necessarily that it's word for word, but you're really hitting the bullet points. We know that Savage was pretty meticulous in his planning and preparation. How was Hogan with this?
He was great.
Yeah.
Yeah, they were great. I mean, we had lived the story.
Right.
We lived the story knowing we were getting to the explosion, knowing we were going to this match. So to be able to go back and throw in things and not rush it and do too much at one time, that you can do one thing and you can get a glance, you can get a look, or you can get something that you can call back on later, was where people go, oh my God, I forgot that, or I just didn't see that at the time. And you have to look through it, through the performer's lens.
Talk to me a little bit about, Savage turning heel here. We see the the angle shot on NBC. He's going to have full blown heel promos against Hogan. He's going to continue to work house shows in a bit of a tweener role, largely working with Bad News Brown into March. But this is very much the era where it's not guaranteed contracts. You're getting licensing deals and merchandising deals, and you're being paid on the house, et cetera, et cetera. But that also means that Randy Savage, who's now been a tag team partner with Hulk Hogan, he was probably getting some pretty fat merch checks. And now as a bad guy, well, bad guys don't sell merch as much, especially in that era. I realize the business has changed, but would that have been a concern to Randy, or was he so excited about the creative and he could sink his teeth into it? You know, our friend JR always says it comes down to 2 C's, cash and creative. Was he so excited to do the creative that the cash was secondary, or was that a concern that, hey man, if I'm a bad guy, my money's going down?
I don't think Randy looked at it like that. And plus there was also, depending upon, you know, okay, if you're a heel or babyface, whatever the hell it is, a lot of times if a heel is just as important to the babyface.
Yes.
Without a great heel. So a lot of times they were compensated in other ways. May not have been, you know, as much merchandise sales, but they may be compensated in other ways. And so that was never really a big issue. I think there were guys that would look at, well, if I was babyface and I was selling Hulk Hogan merchandise that much, I'd be making this much more. Well, you're not Hulk Hogan. You aren't selling that much merchandise, and you're not going to make that much more. So, you know, there was only one Hulk, and there's always going to be talent. There's always going to be guys that are great merch sellers that can, you know, go out and make all of that happen. And then there's guys that can't.
Right.
So that's just the reality of the business. That is what it is.
Well, I'm glad Savage was able to keep an open mind and see things from a different perspective. And let me just say, there's no quick fix for anxiety or depression. And it's not finding a new therapist or starting a new exercise routine. It's not more or regular medication or even a better diet. Sometimes you need something to unlock your brain. You need to see a new way of thinking about and seeing the world. And maybe that thing is guided ketamine therapy from Mind Bloom. There's a new tool to improve your mental health, at-home ketamine therapy. Mind Bloom is the leader in at-home ketamine therapy, having safely helped thousands of people overcome their anxiety and depression. And unlike traditional talk therapy, ketamine works quickly and doesn't have the unpleasant side effects of traditional antidepressants. In a study of over 1,200 Mind Bloom clients, 89% reported improvements in their anxiety and depression after only 2 sessions. And right now, Mind Bloom is offering our listeners $100 off your first 6-session program when you sign up at mindbloom.com/wrestle and use the promo code WRESTLE. So take the first step and break free from your anxiety and depression with Mind Bloom. That's mindbloom.com/wrestle, and be sure to use the promo code WRESTLE. So, Bruce, the WWF has had its final televised house show from the Philadelphia Spectrum on February 11th, 1989. That would end a 12-year run of all these Philly house shows airing on the Prism Network. It went back to 1977. The show only has 10,000 people in the building, with Hogan versus Bossman as the main event. It was normally selling out everywhere else. Do you think you guys stopped airing these because of the declining attendance numbers at the Spectrum, and the fans knew, well, I don't have to go, I can just watch it on TV, or was there something else?
No, it was a bad deal. It was a deal that had been done a long time ago with Philadelphia, very similar to Nesson and Boston and Madison Square Garden network, in that you had, you know, the Spectrum stuff that was owned by them, and they could then take your footage and air it wherever they wanted to, whenever they wanted to. So getting out of that deal gave the company more control and ownership of their footage. Simple as that.
In February of 89, J.J. Dillon is going to leave the NWA, or I guess now it's Ted Turner's WCW, and join the WWF. And around this same period of time, he's going to become the Vice President of Talent Relations. What do you remember about JJ coming in, and does this involve you in any way?
No, JJ was brought in to help with the booking with Pat Patterson and Vince, and JJ was kind of brought in a I don't want to say secretarial role because that's not what it was, but it was more of an organizational, more of an operations role. JJ extremely detail oriented, very good at keeping the books and keeping up with the details of things and of that sort. So having JJ came in highly recommended, and that was needed on that side, to help Pat just kind of organize things and make sure that everything got disseminated out into the rest of the folks in the office.
Tony Schiavone is also going to leave WCW to join the WWF the same month, and he makes his first appearance doing voiceovers for the matches on February 20th, 1989. This is a special edition of Primetime Wrestling, which is billed as a 3-hour face-to-face special. What'd you think of our boy Tony Schiavone coming in here to the World Wrestling Federation, Bruce?
I was happy to have Tony part of the team, and Tony, I thought, was good play-by-play. And in addition to that, what Tony brought to the table was the ability to also produce and to help produce, whether it was vignettes for us or segments, but he eventually took over Coliseum Video and the production of those. So having Tony on board, that was a big help because he served a lot of roles.
It's fun to see him here in the WWF, but it does feel a little different.
He looks like Tony's kid.
He does.
Young little pup and everything, without the gigantic fake earring, fake diamond in his ear and things like that.
That middle of the mall shit.
Yeah, the pubic zirconia that he wears in his ear.
I'm sorry, did you call it a pubic zirconia?
Yes, my good, close, dear personal friend, Irv Marks from IW Marks Jewelers in Houston, who's since passed, but his son Brad still runs the store. Irv always used to go, he goes, "Oh, if you want a pubic zirconia, I can send you down to Alameda Mall and you can get one of those. But if you like quality diamond, then you're going to pay for it."
I love that. Let's talk about Tony for a minute here. How did guys like Gorilla and Bobby how did they welcome Tony? Do you think they viewed him and his mere presence as some sort of a threat for their gig, or was it just peas and carrots right away?
Man, as much television that we were doing at the time between, again, Boston, Philadelphia, MSG, Primetime, and just all of the work that we were doing for our cable properties, our international properties, the addition of another hand to help out in that was very welcomed. And I don't think that Tony was met with anything other than open arms, really and truly. I know that Bobby enjoyed working with him, and Gorilla enjoyed working with him.
Let's mention that this 3-hour face-to-face special on Primetime is going head-to-head with the NWA Chi-Town Rumble pay-per-view at the UIC.
Why are they putting this shit up against Primetime?
I love you for that. You just decided randomly to run a special on this day, and they counter-programmed it with a pay-per-view.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's bullshit.
Well, it seems that, as usual, we're doing all we can to counteract their show. And 2 days before, the WWF has a loaded up house show at the nearby and much bigger Rosemont Horizon, with Hogan and Bossman in a steel cage and Randy Savage and Bad News Brown in a WWE title match, which was even a street fight. And you guys draw a sellout crowd of 19,000 folks in the same market just 2 days prior to their pay-per-view. I love that the WWF and Vince McMahon love to compete. This is fun stuff, man.
It is competition.
Of course, 2 days later, we know they had a fantastic match that people are still talking about, Flair and Steamboat for the title at this much smaller UIC pavilion. They didn't sell it out, even though it was a smaller building, but it was a fantastic match. Steamboat wins the NWA title. But meanwhile, you guys are running a show at Madison Square Garden, and it's being shown live on the MSG network, where we put Randy Savage against the Ultimate Warrior. Just to remind everybody, that means it's your world champion versus your intercontinental champion. We want to make sure that folks in New York know, yeah, you could watch that pay-per-view if you'd like, but this is free. and it's the world champ versus the IC champ. Don't you like the Ultimate Warrior? Don't you like Macho Man? This is the good old days of the war between the WWF.
Oh
and the
my God.
NWA.
Madison Square Garden wasn't a pimple on an at's ass.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
As far as their distribution compared to the rest of the country, it was regional.
Oh, I know that. But
Madison Square Garden Network wasn't, other than New York and
oh yeah, but that's a tiny
surrounding
town.
areas.
Yeah, who cares about New York, right? You don't.
I don't. I'm from Texas.
At this point, did you already know? Do you think that they were going to run Clash of the Champions against you at WrestleMania, or not yet?
I don't really recall. I have no idea.
Well, let's talk about this primetime face-to-face show. It's built around hyping up most of the WrestleMania 5 card. We've got live arena podium interviews that we're recording in Binghamton, New York at the TV tapings. Vince is moderating all of these, and he's firing questions back and forth with the likes of Demolition and the Powers of Pain with Mr. Fuji. We've also got, look at those shoes, by the way. Check out those shoes that Vince is wearing. He's like a TV weatherman.
Right, he was ahead of his time. So everybody's doing that now.
Yeah, it's not just for weathermen anymore. It's for everybody.
Oh, dude, we all wore suits and tennis shoes.
The story,
just running around as you did at TV, man. You had to be comfortable.
The story of Fuji turning on Demolition to side with Powers of Pain. How did you guys decide? Okay, now it's time to make Demolition a babyface, and we know how to do that. Just put Fuji with the other team. Everybody hates Fuji, right?
Sure.
Do you think fans just wanted to cheer Demolition because it was such a cool look and cool gimmick?
Yeah, we were fighting the tide on that one because people had been cheering Demolition for a while. Might as well, make the full turn and give it to them. The only reason that they wouldn't cheer Demolition was probably because of Mr. Fuji. So move Fuji to the other side. Right. And also it was going to help the Powers of Pain because they were not the best on the mics.
Right.
Not that Fuji was, but still.
Yeah. Gave him a little something.
A little more color, yes.
Well, we're going to need a little more color for King Haku with Bobby Heenan taking on Hercules. They too are going to have these podium debates at this TV taping with Vince as the moderator. And of course the backstory is Hercules and Bobby Heenan, but still Hercules is a baby face. I don't know. Did it ever really work? I kind of preferred Hercules as a bad guy.
Yeah. The issue becomes a lot of times we've discussed many times, the person behind the character, they're not always the same person. And Hercules, Ray Fernandez, was a sweetheart of a guy, loved by everyone. Very gentle, very kind, and just a great human being that you would want to be able to put that on display and allow him to project that. I don't know that Ray Fernandez could project that as a baby face in front of the camera. Big, jacked up guy that was, Hercules. It just, I don't think that he could ever really portray a baby face too well. They liked him, but they didn't love him.
Right.
So it was a difficult transition.
Well, with Stud back in the fold after winning the Rumble, we've got him as the special guest referee of a match that's going to take place at WrestleMania between Jake the Snake and Andre the Giant. So what a look this is if you're watching over on YouTube. You got Vince and Stud in the middle, Andre and Heenan to the left, and Jake the Snake on the right. Of course, we know that there's a lot that's been said about Andre's fear of snakes and how Jake just hated working with him. He would stand on his hair and all this other stuff. And I guess Andre didn't really care for Big John Studd either. But I assume the thinking in putting Studd here is we'll hold off on Andre and Studd until later in the year. Is that pretty much it?
That was the idea, was to be able to get to Andre and Studd after the Jake program. So you get to WrestleMania with Studd as the referee, and then spin out of that into your Andre and Stud one-on-ones. Next up, we've got Dino Bravo. And in case you're not sure, he's the bad guy. Frenchie Martin's here to make sure of that. And he's going to taking on Ron Garvin. We don't talk enough about Frenchie Martin. Besides, once upon a time, he knew things about
Well, airplane bathrooms, little pro tips. Anything else you can share with us about Frenchie?
Just one of my favorite people to be able to hang out with. I learned a lot from him just about the business and psychology. So by the time that I got to WWE, Frenchie had stopped working. So he had worked for many years as Rick Martel's brother or something, worked a lot in Puerto Rico and did a lot of the hardcore matches and things there, barbed wire stuff, and got a lot of color. But he was a colorful human being in general. Would go through the security or get his bag at baggage claim, and his bag would pop open and the dildos and vibrators and everything would go flying. Oh my God. Hey, excuse me, madame, is this yours? Sorry about that. Do shit like that at baggage claim, just to entertain the boys. So, great guy, fun loving guy. And, man, I do miss him. I had fun with Frenchie.
I want to ask you about Ron Garvin too. I mean, he's not too far removed from working with Ric Flair and being the NWA World Heavyweight Champion. Now he's here working a program with Dino Bravo. He's been around the territories for a long time. What was your impression of Ron Garvin, and why don't you think he had a bigger run with the company?
Well, I think for the same reason that Ron didn't have a bigger run as NWA champion. It wasn't a whole lot to relate to. And Ronnie, with his French Canadian accent, was sometimes very difficult to understand. Personally, Ron Garvin, kind of like Hercules, man. He's this great, hilarious guy, loved by everyone. Great guy, incredible talent. Wasn't anything you couldn't do in the ring, but there was just something lacking, that it factor, that larger than life factor. Did people believe that he was, the toughest guy in the ring? Yeah, you did. You know why? Because he was. So he could portray that. But I think that where he was lacking was being able to talk someone in to the building. They believed everything he did was real because it pretty much was. Ron was he was a snug, very realistic talent. But I think that, sometimes the pushes and everything would be because of the human being who was this great guy. You could depend on him. He was always on time. Good for the locker room, just, good guy to be around. I just don't know if he was ever going to be that top guy and that top draw.
Let's talk about the next match. We've got the women's champion, Rockin' Robin. She's going to be taking on Sensational Sherry, and they're actually going to discuss which corner Miss Elizabeth is going to be in for the Hulk Hogan Randy Savage match. At this point, did you know that you were going to put Sherry with Savage? That certainly seems like the plan.
I believe so.
How was she with that? How was he with that?
Well, she was great with it, and he was even better. I think that the excitement of being able to work with Sherry was one of the best, if not the best of all time, as far as female performers. She could do it all. She could work. She could talk. Man, she was great as a manager. She was great as a worker, and would enhance anything that she was added to.
Let's ask, why do you think this match between Rockin' Robin and Sensational Sherry didn't take place at WrestleMania? Clearly it was once in the cards, but now not so much.
I have no idea.
Oh, there you go. Hey, I'm good with that. I mean, occasionally stuff gets cut for time. Who knows? Next up, we got the Rooster. That's right. The Red Rooster. He's going to be taking on or doing a little podium talk here with Bobby Heenan and the Brooklyn Brawler. And I found this in my research. Shortly after Terry Taylor joined the WWF in summer of 98. Let me start that again. Shortly after Terry Taylor joined the WWF in the summer of 88, he was packaged as the Red Rooster and paired with Heenan as his manager. given a novice wrestler gimmick, someone who could not navigate his way throughout matches without constant instruction from Heenan. Eventually, the Red Rooster grew tired of Heenan's demeaning style of coaching and turned against him, becoming a face. Shortly thereafter, on an episode of Primetime Wrestling, Heenan claimed to want to break off their relationship amicably, but it was a ruse to set Rooster up to be ambushed by Heenan's new protege, longtime enhancement talent Steve Lombardi, who had just been reinvented as the Brooklyn Brawler. Boy, that's a nice way to sum this up, I suppose, but a novice wrestler gimmick. I don't know about that. Is that the way you would describe the original version of this character with Bobby Heenan?
It was going to be a rooster. I mean, I don't know how many times we have to discuss the Red Rooster.
Right.
It was a guy that was brought in to do a gimmick that didn't want to do the gimmick. So the gimmick flopped and moved on.
A novice wrestler, though, that just tickled me. Like, I don't know about that. Next up, we got the Bushwhackers, and
but it's story.
Yes,
it's story. So all the people that are getting hot about it, guess what? You were supposed to get hot about it.
Well, let's talk about the Bushwhackers and the Rougeaus. They got Jimmy Hart with them. This is also on WrestleMania. Bruce, how many matches does a WrestleMania need? Is this one of those?
God damn, 3.
I mean, in this era, it does feel like even the way you would do the old school poster promotions when you would sort of paper a town or flyer a town or whatever you want to call it. And all the, stores and telephone poles, and they'd have these posters up. It would list a ton of matches. And then sometimes it would say, at the top or the bottom, 9 big matches, 10 big matches, whatever. Was the thinking here, let's try to get as many people on this card and make it an extravaganza and get them a payday? Is it more about trying to get the guys a payday, or is it more about let's overwhelm them with value and there's a ton of talent and a ton of stars?
I believe that there was a feeling in the past of just trying to make this the biggest card of the year, whether that was number of matches, the special eventness of it. I think that most times, more is not more. More is not better. More is just more. And for an audience to keep their attention, and especially I will go back to both WrestleMania 4 and WrestleMania 5, went on forever. And the audience, first of all, was casino audience, so not all of them were as engaged as diehard fans who would purchase a ticket to be there because they really loved and they were educated about the event. But also, it just tires people out. By the time you get to the match you may want to see, if it's later on in the evening, it's like, God, man, I'm tired out from everything else. Versus having 6 or 7 matches that you can focus on and be excited about them and be able to participate in them and not be totally exhausted before the last match gets in the ring.
Let's mention that we've also got a match that we're going to talk about because it's a big one, especially for little Warrior fans like myself. The Intercontinental Champion, the Ultimate Warrior, is going to be taking on Rick Rude, and in his corner is Bobby Heenan. Of course, at this point, maybe you've noticed a theme. Was this just almost a mandate? If you're a heel in the WWF in 1989, you've got to have a manager.
Probably. It usually helped. It immediately established you as a as a heel. So that was just the way the business was at that time.
Just to recap, Demolition is going to take on Powers of Pain with Mr. Fuji. Hercules is going to take on King Haku with Bobby Heenan. Jake Roberts will take on Andre the Giant with Bobby Heenan. Ron Garvin will take on Dino Bravo with Frenchie Martin. The Red Rooster will take on Bobby Heenan with the Brooklyn Brawler. The Bushwhackers will take on the Rougeaus with Jimmy Hart. The Warrior will take on Rick Rude with Bobby Heenan. And of course, we all know in the main event, we get Hulk Hogan, and it's supposed to be a face-off with him and Randy Savage at the podium, but Randy is a no-show for the interview. This is good stuff. What storytelling piece were you trying to use that Randy doesn't even show up for the debate?
Because Randy can't look at that man in the eye with the lust in his eyes and not be able to control himself.
There you go.
It's that simple. We will wait until it's time. Yeah.
How do you record all of these in front at a TV taping in front of the same crowd where I know you're probably filming just hours of matches? It's got to be hard to keep that energy up for one interview after another like this, or is it not? Are you doing it at an early time in the show and that's the secret? You keep them hot, or what's the thinking?
You do it in between matches.
Okay.
It's pretty simple. So how it airs isn't always how it's recorded.
There you go. Well, let's talk about what happens with this Rooster Heenan feud going into WrestleMania 5. We already sort of said that you don't like that.
It's
just there.
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, it's just there. It's just.
Well, he's on Primetime Wrestling as a guest, he being Terry Taylor, pronouns pal. And we've got Gorilla sat in between Rooster and Bobby Heenan, and they're going to try to settle their differences after they had split up on Saturday night's main event 9 days earlier. Of course, here is the new character, the debut of the Brooklyn Brawler. Is this is this the same sitting or taping or what have you, where you remember seeing Bobby saying to the Brawler, "You got to go get dirty"?
No, that was at a TV taping.
Brawler's also going to hit Gorilla with a stool in all of this. So I guess Gorilla's going to wind up taking his first bump since like 1983. And that leaves Heenan to do the rest of the show alone. I bring this up because this is a pretty big time angle for a match like this. I mean, by all account, this is a quote unquote undercard match, but when it's happening on prime time and you're taking out one of the hosts, that's a big deal. No?
Yeah, unfortunately it was. I don't think that this angle warranted that. The fact that Bobby was involved probably warranted that. But, we tried it. We did it. And I don't think that it necessarily worked out. Brawler was here for years. He was perennial enhancement talent that was on the show for many years, that gimmick. But I don't think that anybody, people at the end of his run, I think that was kind of like almost, an endearing figure. Oh, hey, there's Brawler. Do you almost feel sorry for him a little bit? But, this match is just what it was. It wasn't, it certainly wasn't looked upon as going to draw the house for WrestleMania, or that anyone in your group is going, boy, I'm going to see the Brooklyn Brawler versus the Red Rooster. Got to see how this thing shakes out. It was a part of the card.
Let's talk about February 16th. Saturday night's main event is taped at the good old Hershey Park Arena in Hershey, Pennsylvania for a March 11th airing. This is going to be the third Saturday night's main event that goes down in Hershey. And at this point, we've only had 20 of these shows in total. Why was Hershey a prime time location for taping TV, particularly Saturday night's main event? Why did you keep going back there? Beautiful building for television because of the way it was shaped. It was a hockey arena, but all of the seats on the side, it went straight up. So no matter where you shot, you were shooting people. Every single background of every single shot had an audience in it. And the way that building was shaped, it's just made for great television. The key match on this show, this edition of Saturday night's main event, is Hulk Hogan taking on Bad News Brown, and he's got Elizabeth in his corner here. We would also see a backstage interview with Mean Gene talking to Liz to find out whose corner she's going to be in when the Mega Powers explode at WrestleMania 5. And after Elizabeth said she would not be in Hogan's corner, Savage shows up gloating that she's going to be in his corner. And Okerlund finally tries to confirm that with Liz, and she says, nope, I'm not in Randy's corner either. Savage grabs Liz by the chin. Hogan appears and says he has too much respect for his manager to take Savage's head off right now, but he's going to take his head off at WrestleMania and claim his title back. So listen, let's talk about Bad News Brown here. He's in a primetime spot working with Hulk Hogan, but we know at times, based on reading some of the interviews and watching some of his shoot interviews, wasn't always keen on losing. But did anybody have issues putting a Hulk over? I mean, that feels like that's just part of the business here.
No, I don't. Look, man, I don't think that when Allen was in WWE, I cannot recall him ever balking about winning or losing. Allen was a businessman and was willing to do whatever he needed to do to support his family. I can't ever remember him balking one time, at least to me, or that I ever heard of.
There's some TV tapings that happened in El Paso on March 7th, and we get John.
On my
Tenta.
birthday.
How about that?
Yeah, and the place where I was born, too.
How about that? Out in the West Texas town of El Paso.
CBA.
Bruce Prichard was born with a small lasso. John Tenta makes his WWF debut working as a babyface in a tryout match. He goes to a draw versus Mr. Perfect. Is this your first time seeing John Tenta in person? What did you think of him? What did Vince think of him?
It was big bastard. Oh my God. A mountain of a man. The biggest drawback of John was he was very, very mild mannered and had a voice, just, kind of down here. No one was really sure if John was capable of cutting a promo. So there was okay, man. Yeah, you're a big guy. You're impressive. You can move well for a big man and you've got great credentials, but can you express that?
Right.
And I went into the locker room and I asked John, I said, hey man, can you talk? And he stood up and cut a promo on me. And I was like, yeah, you can talk pretty good. Thank you, man. And I just went back and said, he can cut a promo.
Talk to me a little bit about this date. It's a television taping, as we said. We're in El Paso, so you're not far from this is your birth town, but this date, March 7th, 1989, where John Tenta's making his debut, is also the day that sadly Paul Bosch would pass away.
Yep.
And this is also your birthday. So here you are at a TV taping in El Paso, and it's your birthday in the town you were born in, and you find out that your first mentor in this industry that you love passes away the same day. Do you find out that day at the TV taping?
I did. Yeah.
That's sure the worst possible birthday news right there, is it not?
It was devastating. It was bittersweet, as though our relationship, was
fractured at the end.
Fractured at the end. Good way to say it. And still, it's like losing a loved one. It's like losing one of your parents. And here's the mentor. Here's the guy that brought me into the business that was so influential in everything that I did in the business, gave me my start, and he's gone. He's gone without getting to say goodbye or anything of that nature. So it hit me pretty hard because I don't think you're ever prepared for the loss of someone like that. So when this came, it was completely unexpected. It was very quick. So there was no time to prepare.
Right.
And yeah, kind of a shitty day.
In this era, I'm not trying to pick, I'm just trying to learn. In this era, there's no email, there's no internet, there's no social media. And most folks in 89 don't have cell phones. And the few who do, it's usually in their car. And maybe a handful of people have pagers, but even that's a few years away from becoming super widespread. How do you get this news? We always joke telephone, telegram, telewrestler, but before the internet helped bring us all together and technology really advanced, you're at a television taping, you're not at home. How does that news reach you at a TV taping in El Paso?
Well, this particular news reached through Nick Bockwinkel, who I believe Valerie or whoever called Nick's home, told Nick's family, who then told Nick, who then told us.
Oh man. Whew. Well, I'll be honest. I don't know that I ever put together that Paul passed away on your birthday.
It is funny that when you think about it, you talk about information and getting word to people. It was folks had jobs, folks had phone numbers where they worked, and they had loved ones that either, stayed at home and could get that information. So believe it or not, was it instantaneous? No. But where you would send a text today, you would have made a call then.
Right.
And you could have left a message on somebody's recorder or talked to someone, and pretty quickly that word got out. I mean, not as quickly as it does now, but still pretty quickly, and sometimes accurate, sometimes not.
There's a house show in Denver on March 19th, and there's an 11-minute Brother Love Show segment featuring Roddy Piper, where Piper's going to wind up slapping around and hip tossing you to end the segment. And this is Piper's first appearance in the WWF in 2 years following WrestleMania 3. This is a nice way to introduce him again and get you ready for what's going to happen at WrestleMania 5. This is one of the first times you would have worked with Roddy, right?
This was the first time I officially met Roddy.
Yeah.
Now, I'd spoken to Roddy on the phone, but Vince was adamant that we work together before we go do our deal at WrestleMania. So, everybody had been comparing the Brother Love Show to Piper's Pit. And of course, Roddy was someone that I emulated and that I respected a lot. And I tried to emulate as best I could with the Brother Love Show and Brother Love himself. So for me, it was a big thrill personally to be able to work with Roddy. And, Vince was like, yeah, I'm not going to do a Brother Love Show. We had a lot of different guests in mind. So I'm sorry about that, Bruce, but, I think I'm gonna do a Piper's Pit. I think I'm gonna do a Piper's Pit with Morton Downey Jr., who Morton Downey Jr. was a talk show host that was, the biggest thing on television as far as
cable. He was the biggest.
My God. He was Shock TV before there was Shock TV. And my heart just sank because I'm like, fuck, man. In my head, I'm the hottest thing on TV.
Right.
And actually, I was fairly hot at that time. And I'm not going to be in WrestleMania? Shit. This is my idea to do Morton Downey.
Right.
It should be with me. And then, of course, he goes, yeah. And then, of course, the biggest mouth of them all, Brother Love. I'm like, oh my God, I'm going to be on Piper's Pit. Now it's like it was even cooler than I could ever imagine. When I heard there was a chance of getting Roddy, I was like, oh, hey, man, maybe it could be a guest on the Brother Love Show and things like that. To me, it was even better. It was the perfect storm of being on a Piper's Pit. So that was fun. The idea was going out, go meet Roddy, go talk to Roddy, get inside of his head. You guys figure out, what you want to do. And I already had figured out what I wanted to do. I wanted to do exactly what we did in our part, good, bad, or indifferent. I had fun doing it. It's what I wanted to do. And I told Roddy this, and I had heard about how much Roddy hated people imitating him. So hello, Roddy, nice to meet you, and blah, blah, blah. He said, oh, what do you want to do, son? I said, well, I understand. It's a touchy subject. But if I may, please indulge me. What I like to do is I'd like to go out and basically do a Brother Love Show, interviewing you before you come out. And I do you. Oh, you do me, son. That's nice. And he's petting me. Yes, sir. Oh, let me hear how you go, son, or something. And so I do the bit for him. And he's looking at me. He goes, yeah, that's real nice there. And then what do I do? I said, well, then you interrupt, on my the third time I do it, you interrupt and basically come out and take over, and you do the same thing to me, where you go to interview me and you take the microphone away from me and you do me. Like, I love you and all this other shit. And he goes, how's that you do that there, son? I love you. Yes. Okay. Yeah. And we just chatted about what ifs, then lay shit out. And then it was like, I said, then, we'll do a little physicality and I'll fucking, skedaddle. And he's like, what'd you have in mind there, son? I said, well, whatever you want to do. So I'll leave that up to you, whatever the fuck you want to do, man. So we talked in generalities, and I went out and I did it. And the only thing that they had, I said, Jack, the third time that I go to do Roddy, interrupt me with Roddy's music. And I said, once I bump out of the ring and once I'm on the floor, hit Roddy's music immediately. And we just went out and kind of just did our thing. Didn't talk about what we were going to do, how we were going to do it, other than I was going to do him, he was going to interrupt, and then he did his thing. And then he whoops my ass at the end.
Well, I'll tell you what, when you're talking about doing your thing, you need to do it with the best. And we're talking about our friends at Henson Shaving. I absolutely love this razor. I have been selling it hard to all my friends and family and coworkers because I believe it's the best razor I've ever had. I sold my dad on getting one and he said, okay, I'll do it. So I said, oh, we'll use our promo code. And we logged on the computer there at the office and I saw for the first time how much it cost. I'm not going to tell you how much it cost. I had to go look. You got to go look too. But I'll tell you this, I was blown away because not only, this is not ad copy. This is the way I feel. Not only is Henson Shaving better than what you've been doing, it's also cheaper. Let me explain. Henson Shaving is a family-owned aerospace parts manufacturer that's made parts for the International Space Station and the Mars rover. Now they're bringing that same precision engineering to your doggone face. You see, they tell me razor blades are like diving boards. They explain the longer the board, the more the wobble. And the more the wobble, the more likely you are to get nicks and cuts and scrapes. You see, a bad shave isn't a blade problem, it's an extension problem. But Henson Shaving makes metal razors that extend just 0.0013 inches. That's less than the thickness of a human hair. They're able to do this because they use their aerospace grade CNC machines to create a more secure and stable blade that allows you a vibration-free shave. And it gets better. The Henson razor also has built-in channels to evacuate hair and cream, which makes clogging virtually impossible. What I like best about Henson is they wanted to make the best razor, not the best razor business. That means no stupid subscriptions, no plastic, no proprietary blades, and no planned obsolescence. I feel like when I hold it in my hand, this is the last razor I'll ever need. It feels old school. It feels like something our grandfathers used, but it's got that new age tech that's going to give you the best shave of your life. Grandpa never had a razor 0.0013 inches. They didn't know how to make that back then. Aerospace grade CNC machines to the rescue thanks to Henson Shaving. But here's the best part. Once you own the razor, which you're going to do at hensonshaving.com/wrestle, it's only $3 to $5 a year to replace the blades. Think about how crazy that is. When you go down to the store, the drugstore, the Walmart, the Target, whatever, they keep the razors oftentimes behind lock and key because they're freaking expensive. And you're telling me you can get razors for a year for $3 to $5? It's true. That's why I'm sold. Henson Shaving is not only better, it's also cheaper than what you've been doing. Folks, it's time to say no to subscriptions and yes to a razor that will last you a lifetime. Go see for yourself at hensonshaving.com/wrestle. Pick the razor for you and use the promo code WRESTLE and you'll get 2 years worth of blades for free with your razor. Just make sure to add them to your cart. That's 100 free blades when you head to hensonshaving.com/wrestle and use the promo code WRESTLE. 100 free blades. How do you beat it? hensonshaving.com/wrestle. I love it. You will too. I convinced my barber to get one. I've got one at the office. I've got one at home. I've got one in my travel bag. This is a regular part of my life forever and ever. Amen. See what we're talking about right now. You're going to be shocked. $3 to $5 a year for blades? hensonshaving.com/wrestle. So listen, let's talk about it. We're here for WrestleMania V, but it's not the only show. Just like you counter programmed your big primetime special for 3 hours,
We didn't counter program shit. We just did prime time.
Sure. Well, they're going to counter program you, or they're going to try. They're going to counter with a Clash of the Champions on TBS, just like they did at WrestleMania 4. This time, though, they've got a rematch for Flair versus Steamboat. But boy, they need to get their act together because the Chi-Town Rumble is in the rearview mirror, and now it's Raging Cajun Clash of the Champions at the Superdome. And there's maybe a misunderstanding on their side of things. They're not promoting tickets on TV because they want people to just watch and not necessarily come to the arena. Well, no problem. Only 5,300 people show up to the doggone Superdome in New Orleans. It does a 4.6 rating on TV. The prior year with Flair and Sting in Greensboro, they did a 5.8 rating. So this is a win for you guys. By the way, another win is you've jacked up the ticket price from WrestleMania 4 to WrestleMania 5. And because you've done that, WrestleMania 5 draws the largest live gate in wrestling history here in America. And there's more homes that have pay-per-view than they did for 88 or even 87. So as a result, this breaks the all-time record for pay-per-view buys. More than 600,000 people bought this pay-per-view, and it was head-to-head with a free television special on TBS. The result is $18.9 million of a total gross revenue. That's between your pay-per-view, the live gate, and the closed circuit, and everything else. WrestleMania 5 is the biggest show in wrestling history up to that point. Did you know it walking in? Did this not... You said at the top, maybe it didn't feel as big as Hogan Andre in regards to the NBC attraction. But man, this is just shattering all kinds of records. The gate, the pay-per-view, on and on and on. Is this like as good as it's going to get, at least in your mind at the time? Like, we'll never beat this. This is unbelievable.
And to be fair, to clarify, the NBC was a tag team match.
Yes.
It wasn't a one-on-one personal issue by that point. So we knew what we were getting to. And I think the personal issue of the Mega Powers exploding is what made it so special. Was finally Savage and Hogan are going to come together and settle this thing. So it was a great promotion and something people wanted to see, obviously. And I think going in, everybody anticipated this thing to be huge.
Well, it is. There's 18,946 fans in the building. Over 17,500 of those were paid. Noticeably on the ring skirts and the banners above the ring, it's the same ones we used at WrestleMania 4, but we've just added, the eye has been scrubbed out. So it's sort of purple now instead of gold. I just think that's such a cool little thing that we're reusing it. Gorilla Monsoon and Jesse Ventura are on the call as usual, and they have a notable singing sensation. The WWF Women's Champion Rockin' Robin rather, is here to kick off America the Beautiful. Well, she's supposed to anyway. And the music starts up, and Robin just sort of stands here for what feels like an eternity until the music is cut off and we cut away. It's live TV, pal. It was meant to happen. We come back to Robin a few minutes later. Once Gorilla and Jesse welcome us to the show, Howard Finkel apologizes for the audio difficulties, and Robin finally performs arguably the least awesome version of America the Beautiful at WrestleMania. Jesse quickly says on commentary, she needs to keep her day job, Monsoon. Speaking of day jobs. And we're back. Bruce, what'd you think of poor Robin and America the Beautiful? Just snake bit?
Ooh. Yes. Let's go with that.
Yeah.
Was not good. Wasn't good. You know, the other thing about it was I don't know that anyone had ever heard her sing America the Beautiful. I think at one point we had her sing the Star Spangled Banner. Look, man, not everything's a hit. That was not a hit.
I love you. She's a nice woman, and I'm glad that we got to talk about her here today.
She is a nice woman. She's great.
I wish she had been wrestling Sherry
Howdy,
instead.
man.
She probably wishes she was wrestling Sherry too. The first match is King
The
Haku.
audience wish he was wrestling Jerry.
The first match is King Haku with Bobby Heenan taking on Hercules. We're not having a good start. Finkel's going to flub up and introduce Haku using his old ring name, King Tonga. The Robin and Haku flubs were completely edited out of any of the future releases of the show following the original pay-per-view. Bobby Heenan had, of course, sold the contract of Hercules to Ted DiBiase like half a year earlier, which, if this match wasn't just thrown together, Herc coming for revenge on one of Bobby's men is a good reason. Hercules is going to get the win over Haku in 6 minutes and 53 seconds with a back suplex into a bridge that's not exactly what we'd call a hot opener for the biggest event of the year, but hey, it was what it was. Would you agree?
That's what it was.
Yeah.
What it was.
For the next several matches, there's not really any rhyme or reason to sort of explain these matches. And maybe that's a norm for a lot of early WrestleManias. We just want to get guys on the card. The Twin Towers are going to be accompanied by Slick. They're going to be taking on the Rockers in match number 2. They go 8.
This was a great match.
It was a great match. And buddy, there is a clothesline in here that people still talk about to this day, where Akeem takes Shawn Michaels' freaking head off. Ultimately though, it goes 8 minutes and 5 seconds when Akeem pins Michaels with a splash after Bossman caught Michaels coming off the top and hit a power bomb. And this, of course, is the first WrestleMania for a guy who would go on to become Mr. WrestleMania. Maybe not exactly the debut he would have loved to have, but people still talk about that clothesline spot all these years later, man.
Yeah, because it's great. This whole match, again, was going back to the way the Rock and Roll Express was made in Mid-South, and the way that the Dusty, stole the exact same idea and used it in the Carolinas, was Rock and Roll came in 2 small guys, especially compared to the roster that Watts had in Mid-South at the time, which were all big guys, and the Rock and Roll came in and had a match with Nikolai Volkov and Crusher Darsow, Barry Darsow. Big, nasty heels. And Rock and Roll zipped all around that ring. And they scored the upset. And what they did was they were tag team specialists.
There you go.
They were smaller than everybody else, and they knew it. However, the way that they utilized the tag team rules and how they tagged in and out, the way that they manipulated the ring and the way that they cut it off and the way that they tagged in and out. And oh my God, they were so fast and so quick that they could beat anybody, and they did. And I kept trying to, go back and sell this. Pat was on board. I think Vince was much more difficult to sell, to do the same thing with the Rockers. They're not as big as everybody else. But in a team, these guys are tag team specialists, and they can beat anybody on any given day. They're the best at tag team wrestling. And it took a while. I mean, we got there, but not in the same way that I would have loved to have had it done. But it's still, I think we still got there.
Oh, it was a good match. I like the Rockers in that era too, and
they were great. And look, man, Akeem and Bossman were great at this time too.
Yes, no doubt. Speaking of great, Ted DiBiase's great, and we're going to hear from him backstage. He's now the $1 Million champion. He debuted that new belt about a month prior to this on the Brother Love show. He's not going to be defending the belt here, but there you see what a great shot of Tony Schiavone with a little sun in that hair. Hey, at least he got one WrestleMania. So we know Brutus Beefcake's going to be taking on Ted DiBiase with Virgil. They're going to go to a double count out of 10 minutes. And prior to the bout, DiBiase and Virgil are going to shake hands with Donald Trump at ringside, which is obviously a big deal. And after the match, Beefcake is going to put Virgil in a sleeper and fight Ted DiBiase. But both men are able to escape the ring before Beefcake can use the cutting shears on DiBiase. We're just a year removed from Ted being in the main event against Randy Savage. And here, he's not even beating Brutus the freaking Barber Beefcake. What's the thinking here? I understand the whole storyline of the $1 Million champion, and that was great stuff. However, was Ted frustrated with creative, or was this just a function to, hey, let's have these guys work together around the house shows.
Again, by that logic, so well, everybody should be in the main event every time. Well, if you were in a main event once and every show, you should be in the main event. That doesn't work. You've got to go up and down the card. That's just logic. It's just not everybody's going to be in the main event every single show.
Next up, we see footage from the WrestleMania brunch with Lord Alfred Hayes trying to interview the Bushwhackers as they're eating as only the Bushwhackers can. What do you remember of these WrestleMania brunches? Any fun memories of those?
No, we used to do some fun shit, especially there in Atlantic City. We did they're almost like rickshaws, and where somebody, what do they call them? Hansom cabs or something like that. And
pedicabs.
Yeah. But they would run with them.
Okay.
You'd have a person pick them up and run with them. And we had races like that. We had marathons, we had brunches, we had a lot of different things. This was before there was a WrestleMania week. It was kind of the WrestleMania weekend in which superstars participated in events all over the market and everything. And in Atlantic City, there was no shortage of things for them to do and be a part of. We took over the town in every way that we could. So there was always something going on, and always something if you can't, hey, we missed the chariot races or whatever. Well, by God, I'm going to make the brunch. Or I missed the 5K run. Well, by God, I can go make the autograph signing at wherever. So there were always something for people to do.
The Fabulous Rougeaus are going to come to the ring with their song on pay-per-view for the very first time. The amazing "We're All American Boys." It's match number 4 for the Bushwhackers, taking on the Fabulous Rougeau brothers, who of course have Jimmy Hart. And they go 5 minutes and 11 seconds when Luke is going to pin Raymond following the battering ram and a double gutbuster behind the referee's back. And after the bout, Sean Mooney is going to attempt to interview fans up the steps in the aisle when the Bushwhackers come up from behind him and lick his face. But that's not what I remember most about this match. I remember when there was a scoop slam from one of the Rougeaus on one of the Bushwhackers, and well, we did a little tuggy. It's one of my favorite little internet Twitter memes where people will post this clip. I'm sure the guys are just trying to make each other laugh, but I don't remember something like that happening on camera before. But even today, I will get a chuckle when I see it.
What in the hell are you talking about?
One of the Bushwhackers gets picked up for a body slam, and he grabs a hold of something.
Well, sometimes you just got to grab.
Well, he did, but he didn't just grab it. He gave it a little shake, like he had finished at a urinal. And I don't know.
Maybe there was enough there to shake. I don't know.
I just thought it was funny. It's like
It was exciting that there was something more there for him to shake.
Gave him a little bit of the shake, 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 shake their wiener. No. Their wiener. No.
Yeah.
So after the bout, this whole Sean Mooney, listen, I don't know that anybody could have been excited about the Bushwhacker lick, but it was part of their act, was it not?
Yeah, no, it was fun to get licked by the Bushwhackers.
Okay. All right. That might actually be a shirt.
Yeah.
Speaking of these steps, Mr. Perfect is going to stumble slightly on his way to the ring for his next match, just as one of the Bushwhackers did for their match. Those Trump Plaza long steps down from the entrance ring.
Oh my God.
It's kind of a nightmare to navigate, is it not?
God, they were horrible.
Yeah.
And they were carpeted, and there were places in the carpet where it wasn't tight. So you had like that little bump, and they were horrible. They were horrible. And you couldn't even count out like, okay, six steps till you get to the next step, no, they were all different. They're all horrible and long.
Horrible and long.
Horrible and long.
You would start to see Renee.
Not like you're long and horrible.
No, that'd be different.
No, that would be different.
It feels like Renee Goulet starts telling everybody as soon as they come through the curtain to look out for the steps. And speaking,
look out for the step. Ah, you dumb idiot. He tripped on the step.
Mr. Perfect is going to win match number 5, pinning the Blue Blazer with a forearm blow in the perfect plex at 5:49, Perfect is now wearing a singlet for the first time. Prior to this, he'd just been wrestling in short trunks. And for a fun little quick match, the crowd is completely quiet for it, as they are for a lot of the show. I get the idea that perhaps a lot of these were quote unquote casino buys. Will that be fair to say?
Yes, they were.
Can you explain
Way
to our
too many.
listeners what that was? What is a casino buy? And I'm sure that's part of the way you achieve this all-time gate record, right?
Yeah, the casino buys up so many tickets for the event and gives them out to their high rollers. And a lot of times the high rollers just want to go and be seen at whatever the big event in town is, whether they are into it or not. And unfortunately, a lot of times they weren't necessarily into it. So you had people that were there that were just there to be there, didn't pay for the tickets. You know, the casino did.
Right.
But you dropped, $100,000 in the casino to get a couple tickets, and you go because you think this is the thing to do. And it kills the ambiance of the event a lot of times.
I think this is the weekend where Bret Hart has told the memorable story of Owen prank calling his dad Stu on the phone, saying he was Reggie Parks and really riling up Stu that he wanted to go with him right now. This is also when we would see Owen go for a split-legged moonsault. But look at all the talent here that's in the rise in the ranks here. I mean, the coming out party for Mr. Perfect, and the Blue Blazer is not long for this world, but man, Owen Hart's going to be a part of this company for a long time. Even though this might feel like the peak, it also feels like the beginning of a hell of a run talent wise. Does it not?
Absolutely. Yeah. It was absolutely. It was an opportunity here. You see a lot of young talent that is just starting to get into the position of, what's next in their career. And for guys like Sean, for guys like Owen, for guys like Brett, Perfect, man, it was a launching pad.
Well, we know that we're going to see Mr. Fuji on the Atlantic City Boardwalk. This is the prior morning's WrestleMania 5K run with Lord Alfred Hayes. They turn this into,
Fuji won it.
They do a fun little bit here where he's going to talk about how he's going to win because he's in superior shape, even though everybody else is in their running gear and he's in a full tuxedo. And then we cut to the end of the race, and Fuji has completed it faster than anyone else. Of course, there's some questions.
Yes, Fuji was, man, you give him a 5 or 6K and he'll eat it.
Set records.
He'll kill it. Oh, yes, absolutely, man. And hardly break a sweat.
Yes.
His face paint was still intact.
Look cool doing it.
He didn't need running shoes or little shorts or anything like that, man.
Tuxedo
Man
Jones.
has class.
Yes, correct. Probably had a pedicure and a manicure if I had to guess.
Of course.
Gotta have class, pal.
Gotta have class.
So before we get to the next match, we do another little intermission bit here. We see Jesse the Body Ventura pose at the top of the podium. We introduce him to the crowd, and he does the pose down just like he did the prior year. But when we come back from
that was dangerous as shit.
How so?
We could never get away with doing that today with all the safety and everything when you think about it. Dude, that was like a little platform that came out over the audience from the booth. And man, I remember going up there and walking in the booth and thinking, holy shit, there's no way I would get out there.
Right.
There's no railing. There was no nothing. And Jesse's like, yeah, I'll be fine. Okay.
Well, we're fine to come back and see Run DMC perform the WrestleMania rap.
Yeah, man.
Run DMC, obviously a big act. Hip hop is becoming a bigger and bigger thing. They are mainstream acts and big stars. How do they come to be at this show?
Myrna Gardner, man, was the person that booked talent for us at that time. And they were a red hot act, but also big, big fans. They came to the studio in Stamford to record the commercials for WrestleMania that they were a part of to promote their attendance at WrestleMania and the WrestleMania rap that they were writing. And I'm producing these vignettes with them, and they're going on and on about how much they hate this guy, Brother Love. And if they were ever in his presence, they would fuck him up and they would kick his ass unlike any ass kicking he ever had. and nobody would smarten them up. And then somebody smart, I left the room to do something and came back in towards the end of the night, and they were backpedaling and just like, oh my God, I didn't know that was you. And turned out to be good guys, but I was not a fan at first.
They warmed up to each other.
We did warm up to each other. Yeah. Well, once we got time to hang out and all this stuff. Yeah. Look, I was not a fan of that rap stuff. Yeah. I got there. I like the Sugar Hill Gang and what's that rap?
Rapper's delight.
Rapper's delight. It's delightful to be a rapper. I said a hip, a hippie did a hippie, did a hop, hop, the hippie did a hip, bang, bang, the boogie said up, jump, the boogie did the boogity beat. Now, if your girl starts acting up, then you take her friend.
I don't think that's how it goes.
Motel, Holiday Inn. If your girl starts acting up, then you take her friend. That's a fucking line in that song.
I don't think it goes in that order, but I'm really impressed.
If you ever go over to your friend's house to eat and the food just ain't no good.
What is going on?
Yeah. Right, that's part of that song, man.
Match number 6.
Macaroni's mushy and the chicken tastes like wood.
What? Okay.
I said a M-A-S, a T-E-R, a G with a double E. I said, I go by the unforgettable name of the man they call the Master G. Well, my name is known all over the world by all the foxy ladies and the pretty girls. Going down in history as the baddest brother that ever could be. Yeah, I'm feeling the highs and I'm feeling the lows. Something going down into my toes. Yeah, all this dude, man, I'm a rapping motherfucker, man. These guys were posers.
I don't know what to say.
Yeah.
The tag team champions Demolition are going to defeat Powers of Pain and Mr. Fuji in a 2-on-3 handicap match when Axe is going to pin Fuji following the decapitation after Fuji accidentally threw the salt in the Warlord's eyes. Tony Schiavone is in the back and he's going to try to enter Randy Savage's dressing room. He's going to run out and say no interviews and pushes the cameraman down. Dig it?
Wish you would have pushed Tony down.
That'd have been great. Next up, we've got Dino Bravo pinning Ron Garvin in 4 minutes with an inverted atomic drop and a side suplex. But before we get there, Howard Finkel introduces Jimmy Snuka, with Snuka then appearing, coming to the ring, posing for the fans, and then leaving. It's kind of weird, but that's what happened. And after the match, Garvin is going to knock Bravo to the floor, attack Martin, and execute the Garvin stomp. And this is Snuka's return after last appearing in the company in June of '85. And it's also
Lovely brother. Lovely.
Why no match here? No physicality. Why just walk out to the ring and pose?
That's all he needed to do.
Snuka must pose.
Lovely brother. Yes. Shakara. Lovely brother.
So,
I remember that chi.
Jimmy Hart's going to take over for Dino Bravo. And this is the 7th match, and we're only halfway through. There's 7 more to go.
Okay, so I was just going to say, when you got to this point, I said, Conrad, does this already feel like a long fucking show?
It is.
Yes, it is. And you haven't even gotten to the best part. Yeah.
Of course, we're talking about the Strikeforce breakup. That's what's coming up next. And the crazy thing is, this is their first time teaming since June of '88. Martel had left for 6 months and only worked as a single for a few months before coming back in January. It's the Brainbusters beating Strikeforce in 9 minutes and 17 seconds. Arn Anderson is going to pin Tito after the spike pile driver. Late in the bout, Rick Martel walks out on his partner after Tito accidentally hits him with the flying forearm. And after the contest, Mean Gene Okerlund conducts a backstage interview with Martel about his actions, with Martel claiming he was sick of Santana wanting to ride his coattails and called him a loser. The whole story is about Rick and Tito, but there's never a big payoff. Why do you think that is?
I don't know.
This is good stuff. Next up.
It's just, yeah, it is. I don't think people cared, unfortunately.
Okay, there you go.
People just really didn't care.
Well, we know Howard Finkel is going to make sure everyone cares about a long, elaborate introduction for Roddy Piper, but you come out instead wearing a kilt and pretending to interview Piper. doing your own impersonation of Piper to answer each of his questions. Moments later, Morton Downey Jr., who was supposed to be Piper's guest, appears, insults you, and then the real Piper is introduced. Piper speaks with you, mentioning the kilt. Then he takes it off, and we reveal your big red underwear, and you're running back up the steps trying to cover yourself up, and Piper turns his attention to Mr. Downey. They start going back and forth. Eventually there's the whole "don't blow no more smoke in my face" stuff. The fire extinguisher comes out. It's a big bit, and you're in there with one of the biggest television stars and one of your inspirations for wrestling. A true bona fide WrestleMania moment here. Probably the biggest moment in your career at this point, no?
At that point, absolutely this was. And going back and being able to work with Morton Downey Jr. was, again, he was a pleasure. He was a really good, fun guy. You know, he got it. He was breaking barriers over there in daytime television and creating a genre that, you know, to this day is still taking place. So he was an interesting cat. He was an interesting cat, but he got it, and he was fun to work with. Going through that whole thing, first of all, it took forever. The idea was, once I left, that they were pretty much supposed to go home right there, man. They were supposed to wrap it up. And Roddy and they started ad-libbing. Now, this one I had written out for everybody and everything, and we rehearsed it. Everything was fine. We went over it a gazillion times because I just didn't trust Roddy, and I for sure as hell didn't trust Morton. And I want to know exactly what the hell they were going to say out there, and they didn't do any of it. They just ad-libbed and went on and on and on and on. And God, I was dying. And Vince was looking at me going, "How long is this going to go?" And I should have been done 5 minutes ago. And then they went on and on from there. I remember coming back. I tripped on the steps going up, and first time I did it, I meant to do it so that I could get up and have my big red ass in the camera's, face and all that shit and everything. The second time I did it was an accident, and I really tripped. And man, I thought I broke both my knees, and my knees were so skinned up and so banged up, both swollen. I mean, huge the next day. And I really thought, I broke my knees, and I just banged them up pretty bad, but holy cow, it hurt. Then they finally got done, and Piper did the fire extinguishing thing, and Morton Downey just kept coming. He was supposed to stay in the ring and sell, and he just kept coming, and Piper wanted to kill him. Shit happens.
Was there a story about this show backstage that involved ceiling tiles, or am I thinking of something else?
No, this wasn't ceiling tiles. It was air conditioner. So back in those days, the only time that you saw police with dogs, they were drug dogs. So you thought. The dressing room was basically the stage with the curtain. Mm-hmm. All right. And everybody had their bags and shit and everything there. That's where we all dressed. When all of a sudden, from like all corners of the building, man, come these cops with dogs.
Yes.
And they're like sniffing, and and everybody went and grabs their bags, and they're running. And I grabbed my bags, and Piper and I went upstairs or something. And Roddy looks up and he says, "They can't smell it up there." And there was like an air conditioning unit that was kind of hanging from the ceiling. And I throw my extracurricular activity bag up there just because I'm terrified. Oh, dog to come and find my stash. But like an idiot, I just did it. And then I look at him and go, "Now what? How do I get it down?" I don't know, man. Good luck with that. Oh, you asshole. So I sat there with a broom, kind of
trying to get it down with your broken knees. This would help my broken knees if I could get it down.
Yes.
Yes.
And it did. I finally got it down.
Yeah. Well, there's a will, there's a way.
Will, there's a way.
Yes.
You put drugs on top of an air conditioning unit 10
Bruce Prichard will get it down.
I can get it down for you.
Then we see a commercial for the No Holds Barred movie, and Jesse Ventura is pissed after this commercial, saying Hogan's trying to invade his territory in Hollywood and steal his thunder. This would have been a great promo, a great program. Then we see a very nervous Sean Mooney conduct a very awkward interview with Donald Trump in the front row. Mooney is stumbling over his words, but listen, at this point, Donald Trump wasn't who he is now. He was pretty famous rather than infamous, if you will. And then we see a recap of everything leading up to the whole Hogan Savage main event before Mean Gene interviews Hulk Hogan. And it's one of those crazy promos where he talks about everything under the sun, including sending a whole team of seismologists out here to check the foundation of the Trump Towers. Because when the mega powers explode off the launching pad, brother, as we erupt over the whole Atlantic City, he was worried about the foundation. He was worried about the thousands of people in the arena that might become unseated and swallowed by the earth. Hogan maybe helped you get some of that stuff down from the ceiling, it sounds like.
Well, yeah, with just the rumbling of the
it just jarred it loose.
Earthquake that was ensuing.
Match number 9 is one of the big matches. We've got Andre the Giant taking on Jake the Snake. Big John Studd is our special guest referee. And this all, of course, began back in October of '88 on Saturday night's main event when Andre suffered a quote-unquote heart attack when Jake threw Damien on him, showing that Andre is indeed afraid of snakes. And there's the whole other story of trying to tell the story of how can Jake possibly get a DDT on Andre. In the end, Jake gets the win by DQ, when Andre attacks the referee and repeatedly headbutts Studd as Roberts chases Ted DiBiase and Virgil in the aisle, and DiBiase attempts to steal Damien from ringside. And after the bout, Roberts is going to slide Damien into the ring and scare Andre off. Fun stuff here. And it eventually sets up Jake versus DiBiase, which we see a year later at WrestleMania 6. But after this, he's going to take some time off for a neck surgery. What could have been here if Jake didn't take some time off? Do you think he would have become an even bigger star? I mean, I know that it's not like he planned to be hurt, but it felt like he had some momentum here working with Andre. This could have been a much bigger deal, man.
Yeah, absolutely. But I also think that had Jake not taken the time off and got the neck surgery, I don't know how long his career might have lasted beyond that.
Well, there you go.
And the neck surgery was from the shot that he took from the Hockey Talk man in that snake pit when Hockey came out and hit Jake with the guitar. So Jake really needed the time off here just for his own good.
Tony Schiavone is going to be backstage with Sensational Sherry, and she's going to call out Elizabeth and blames her for the mega powers exploding. So we're teasing the upcoming partnership with Sherry and Savage. So maybe they had this in mind and they thought, well, we don't need Sherry doing that and the match. So we'll let Rockin' Robin go sing, and maybe Sherry made out better here. Bret Hart is another guy who's going to trip on the steps when he's coming down to the ring to start match number 10.
Probably the same place I did.
It's the Hart Foundation getting a win over Honky Tonk Man and Greg the Hammer Valentine. It happens when Bret pins Honky after hitting him with Jimmy Hart's megaphone that was thrown into him by Jim Neidhart. This is clearly one of those matches where we just got to get everybody on the card. But fans are excited for match number 11 on this show. It's the Intercontinental Championship match, the Ultimate Warrior defending against Ravishing Rick Rude. And frankly, anything would be an improvement from the pose down at the Royal Rumble. Rude has the IC title airbrushed on the front of his tights, which is a really nice touch. And ultimately, Rude picks up the win when Ultimate Warrior suplexes Rude into the ring, and Heenan grabs Warrior's leg out from under him and holds the boot down. The referee does not see that the boot is underneath the bottom rope. 1, 2, 3. Rick Rude is your Intercontinental Champion. And of course, Warrior is going to chase after Heenan and then drop him with a gorilla press slam and run backstage after Rude. This is probably Warrior's greatest match in his career at this point, but Warrior dropping Heenan at the end looks pretty damn scary, especially when you consider that Bobby Heenan still has to wrestle tonight. And this is Warrior's first pinfall loss in the company. He doesn't suffer very many. It's going to lead to Warrior chasing Roode on the house shows and then reclaiming it at SummerSlam 89. And this is Heenan's first champion that he's going to manage in nearly 5 years. It's crazy to think it took Heenan 5 years to manage a champion, but I'm sure he's talking about that less and more about that bump he took from the Ultimate Warrior. What do you remember about Bobby talking about this? He couldn't have been happy.
Nobody was happy taking that bump from Warrior.
Yeah.
It was painful.
Yeah.
Him grabbing you him touching you was painful.
Yeah.
So, Bobby was a trooper, man. Bobby would do any and everything that he could possibly do to make the matches better and to enhance. And if that meant him taking bumps, then he was going to take bumps. I think that the frustration was that, you go out there and you give your body for someone and they treat your body recklessly. And that's what happened here. I just watched it, and it's painful to watch. It's painful to watch him try. You could tell that Warrior just didn't, he couldn't get him up. The only guys that Warrior ever got up were guys that were really good that he wanted to get up. Like, he didn't like me. He didn't want to get me up. He didn't want to get Bobby up. He, couldn't get Hogan up. So, it is what it is.
Let's talk a little bit about match number 12. Hacksaw Jim Duggan fighting Bad News Brown to a double disqualification. They go 3 minutes and 47 seconds. Bad News is going to grab a steel chair after he took a clothesline from Duggan. And Duggan is going to swing back with a 2x4. And there's a pretty famous shot of Duggan with a huge wad of snot hanging out of his nose at the end of the match, which of course Jesse's going to talk about how disgusting it is on commentary. And then match number 13. Thankfully, it's a quickie. It's the Red Freaking Rooster, now sporting red dye in his hair to further establish that he is indeed a rooster, versus his manager or former manager, Bobby the Brain Heenan. And before the match, Mean Gene does a rooster promo. That, of course, starts with cock-a-doodle-doo and ends with cock-a-doodle-doo. It'll be a great day at the barnyard, blah, blah, blah. Yeah. Heenan,
good stuff.
Heenan's still selling, getting dropped by the Warrior earlier, and he's got Brooklyn Brawler with him. It goes 32 seconds before that's it. Heenan's going to get hit with the ring post shoulder first, and after the bout, Brawler's going to attack the Rooster, but Rooster quickly clears the ring. It was a great day at the barnyard. And then we've got Mean Gene with a concerned Miss Elizabeth before the main event, and she's emphasizing she's going to be in a neutral corner, and her only hope is that Hulk nor Randy get hurt. And we're finally here. The 14th match on the card, and the Mega Powers are about to explode. But don't you sleep on this main event. And I'll tell you what, Bruce and I don't have any trouble sleeping thanks to Sleep Me. You see, science has proven that cold sleep creates better sleep. Temperature controlled sleep repairs your muscles after a hard day's work, and it improves your cognitive function, so you can always start your day feeling sharp and confident and alert and energized. That's where Sleep Me comes in. Let me explain. Sleep Me is the new home for chilly sleep. Same great sleep, but a new name. Sleep Me makes the coldest sleep systems available. They create the environment that meets the body's natural need for lower core temperatures. They promote deeper, more restorative sleep. These systems are water-based, but it's not a water bed. It's a temperature-controlled mattress topper that fits over your existing mattress to provide you the ideal sleep temperature. You see, water has these amazing thermal properties, so it can heat up some air or cool down some air, and that air circulates through your bed and keeps you warm or cool. My wife likes to sleep a little warmer than I do. She wants to climb into a warm bed, but then cool her off so she doesn't get all hot and sweaty, and warm her up to wake her up. That's all automated through the app. You can do this too. We're in the same bed, sleeping on different sides at different temperatures. And they just launched a brand new Doc Pro sleep system, and check this out, y'all. It's got new Hyper AI. So you can experience ultimate cooling power with the Doc Pro sleep system. You can pair it with the new Sleep Me app, and you can get real-time temperature adjustments based on your current sleep activity from the new Hyper AI technology. You see, this is the industry's first sleep tech that tracks and optimizes your sleep and your sleep temperature in real time. So you can get the best sleep of your life with some AI-driven technology. How about that? Head on over right now to sleep.me/wrestle to learn more and save 25% off the purchase of any new Dock Pro, Euler, or Cube sleep system. I got to tell you, this offer is available exclusively for Something to Wrestle With listeners, and y'all, it's only for a limited time, so hurry. That's sleep, sleep.me/wrestle to take advantage of our exclusive discounts and wake up feeling refreshed every day. Sleep.me/wrestle. Let's jump back into it, man. The Mega Powers are exploding. It's our 14th match on the show. Of course, it's customary for the challenger to enter first for a big title match. But here comes the champion, the Macho Man, the heel, and he's out first. And the story is he's competing with a serious staph infection. Now, we at home, we don't know this, but there's no chance that Macho Man is going to miss a WrestleMania main event against Hulk Hogan, the biggest, most successful wrestling show of all time. So he's out here wrestling with a staph infection wrapped up in his elbow. Tell us about it, Bruce.
Well, Randy had banged his elbow, and in doing so, as the thing was healing, Randy contacted staff, and his entire elbow just ballooned up, got red, and you saw the line going down his arm. So for days before, Randy was getting intravenous fluids and antibiotics into his system so that he would be able to go. He got the swelling and everything down, but it was still an open wound. So Randy had to wrap that thing, and we had to protect the hell out of it so that it didn't get damaged further. I don't know that it really could have been any more damage to it at that point, but Randy, being the trooper that he is, taped it all up. We had doctors go in and pack it and make sure that it was clean as could possibly be, and also wrap that damn thing up so that, nothing would be able to get into it. And Randy went out like the trooper that he is to have that match. Wasn't anything that was going to keep Randy out of the ring that night.
I'm sure he's not even upset that he's coming out first. Everybody in the business knows Hulk Hogan's the biggest star, and here he comes. But the gimmick here is that Elizabeth is going to be at ringside, but in a neutral corner. So she's going to make her decision of who she's going with at the end of the match. Even though everyone saw Savage as the company's top heel again, she still sees the good in him. During the course of the match, Savage takes a bad bump on the outside, and Elizabeth goes to help him, but he yells at her. Later, when Hogan tries to post Savage, Elizabeth gets in the way. This allows Savage to post Hogan, but Elizabeth then stops Savage from attacking Hogan. The referee orders Elizabeth to leave ringside, and later Savage hits the flying elbow in the closing moments, but Hogan kicks out at 2, and of course makes his big Hulk up comeback and gets the pin in 17 minutes and 54 seconds. Big boot to the face, leg drop, and what do you know? We have a new WWF champion for the second time, the Hulkster. Of course, he beat the Iron Sheik way back when, and now here he is all these years later. Hogan's won it back, and this is really a great match. Hulk Hogan is not really known for having good matches. Savage made sure this was a WrestleMania worthy main event. I really enjoyed this match, and I know there's naysayers out there who would say, well, Steamboat had a better match that night with Ric Flair. He probably did.
Well, Clint from Hershey, he will say, well, there were 19 different pin attempts in the match before, and this one only had like 9, and I think the 9 is not appropriate amount of number of pinfalls for a championship match this caliber being in the main event of the WrestleMania.
We totally agree. This is the biggest show possible. Home run event. The beautiful championship that was just debuted a year prior, now around Hulk Hogan's waist. Fun little trivia note. Randy Savage wore one belt to the ring, and when Hogan holds up the belt at the end of the night, it is in fact a different championship made by Reggie Park. Same design, but a different belt. I'm curious from your perspective. We've always heard that Randy Savage was particular. That's a nice way of saying it. He's coming out first. I don't think that's probably that big a deal to him. I could see him getting that.
No.
But then he's also going to have Hulk kick out of the elbow drop. Any discussion about that you recall?
No, not at all.
Okay.
Again, it's the right thing to do. It was, as much as people would like to talk about, oh yeah, it's flat blasphemous. No, it's great story, folks. It's a great story. And if, somebody, to me, that's just that silly stuff that fans that think they're smart have created amongst in their own mind. That it's to me, it's silly. Absolutely silly.
What'd you think of the show, Bruce, overall?
Too long
For sure. But
yeah, it just was way too long. You could have had the Savage match with Hulk. You could have had Warrior and Rude,
Jake and Andre,
Brother Love and Piper. I mean,
gotta have
could have
that.
probably got just done that in Savage and Hogan.
That'd been it.
Then that'd be it. People would have been happy. But there was just too many matches that did not mean anything, that were just filler to say, hey, there were 14 matches on the card.
So do you hold this in high regard? Is this one of your favorite WrestleManias just because of the main event, or no?
Actually, yes.
Yeah,
I do. I think that this was one of the best WrestleManias. And again, I am partial. I'm partial to the story of Hogan and Savage that was patient and laid out and paid off. And then I'm partial to it because I got to play a part of it with one of the top stars ever in the industry. So that was a big deal.
Well, it's a big deal that we got you to pin down and talk about WrestleMania 5. This has been one of our most requested topics, and as such, we got a bunch of questions. No way we'll get to them all. Let's hit a few. James Stewart, friend of the show, shout out to him. Our buddy from Calhoun's wants to know, whose idea was it to break up Strikeforce, and who came up with the in-match creative to do it? That's one question, but here's the one I'm more interested in. Why were Tully and Arn allowed to be similar to how they were in the NWA and not have something pulled out of the old box of gimmicks for them?
I think that's just who they were. I don't know that Tully and Arn could do anything else other than Tully and Arn. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't think either one was really capable of doing a character. And they were who they were. So let them be who they are. I don't think that Terry Taylor the Red Rooster was more interesting than just Terry Taylor. Terry Taylor did not have the same level of success as Arn and Tully did. So it's just completely different. I completely forget what the first question was.
Here's one from Mike Mills. He says, at this point, was there ever thought, or what were the thoughts for WrestleMania 6? Warrior losing to Rude seemed like it was getting ready to move him up to the tippy top. That's a great question. Did you know, or did you have an idea where you wanted to go for WrestleMania 6 at this point?
No, we had an idea that we wanted Warrior to be a top guy without a doubt. So the grooming had begun for the Ultimate Warrior. And, that definitely was the case. To say that we knew that we were going to go Hulk and Warrior at WrestleMania 6, absolutely not.
Francis wants to know, were there any lessons you learned from the previous year's Mania as it's in the same venue? That's interesting. Did you try something? You said, all right, we won't do it like that again from 88 to 89, something you improved?
I think it was more along the lines of what we learned of what to do and to embed ourselves in the community around Atlantic City and Trump, and be able to participate in as much locally as we possibly could, to show the rest of the world Atlantic City, and to show the rest of the world, the Trump Casino, which that was why they were hosting us. So give them that exposure on television, because then you take that and you can use that to help show other sponsors and other folks that want to be involved with you. Here's what we can do for you. Here's what we did for them in Atlantic City, and here's what we could do for you. Here's how we can be involved in your community. Here's how we can enhance your property and give you the promotion that you never, ever had on a national, global basis for WrestleMania.
Got it. One last one, and I think you're going to like this one. This is a great question from Dylan McLean. He wants to know, hey, Bruce.
What a name. That's a good name. Dylan McLean.
How come Brother Love was never booked to beat Hulk Hogan and win the WWF Championship?
Dude, am I right? Exactly. How come?
I mean,
I could have been champion. I should have been champion. I was fucked. That's all I got to say about that. It was all politics. They didn't like me. They didn't like me.
They're holding you down.
Screwed me. They screwed me. They held me down. Yeah.
I heard Vince promised you a title run too.
Yeah. Several times.
Yeah.
Several times. Said, I promise you.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it didn't happen.
No.
Well, what is going to happen is
but
next week.
I've got Undisputed Something to Wrestle podcast of the year.
Two-time.
2 years in a row.
Two-time.
Right there. And the best of sports media, Sports Illustrated. Yeah, got all those right there. Yeah.
Next week, Bruce, we're going to be discussing TNA's Victory Road 2011. We'll talk about Sting's return to the company, winning the TNA title, Mr. Anderson and Rob Van Dam, AJ Styles with Ric Flair, and of course, the now infamous Sting and Jeff Hardy main event. Don't forget, you get all these shows early and ad-free over at adfreeshows.com. You get more than a dozen shows starting at just $9 a month. And now you can get a free trial. That's right. Try a week on us at adfreeshows.com. And be sure to check out Friday, March 17th. We've got 7 new pieces of bonus content from Eric Bischoff, Jake Roberts, myself, and a whole lot more. Celebrate St. Patrick's Day at adfreeshows.com. By the way, if your business targets men 25 to 54 years old, buddy, there's no better place to advertise than right here with us on Something to Wrestle With. You've heard us do a lot of ads for the same companies year after year. Now, why is that? Well, because it really works. And with our super targeted audience, man, there's very little waste. Go now to advertisewithbruce.com and find out more about advertising here on Something to Wrestle. If you missed the show, you're missing out on YouTube. Go check it out right now, somethingtowrestle.com. That's somethingtowrestle.com. You got to see Bruce on video. Silva does a great job putting some graphics and photos that really support the story we're trying to tell. Check it out. I think you'll dig it. Somethingtowrestle.com. And we should mention, we got t-shirts, tumblers, mugs, and a bunch more stuff, including our brand new It's Ding Dong Time tee, just in time for St. Patrick's Day. We've got our Kiss Me, I Love Wrestling tees. All of this stuff is available right now at somethingtowrestleshirts.com. That's somethingtowrestleshirts.com. Still an OG, but a favorite of mine, the Whiz Awful His House. Go check it out. Bruce, today's show was fun. Lots of requests for this one. Thanks for the time, and I'd be lying if I said I was looking forward to your cold weather, but I am looking forward to seeing you soon.
Well, you should be looking forward to the cold weather too. And it'll be wet too. Wet, damp, and cold.
That's like Dave Silva's heart. Wet,
yes.
Damp, and cold. Because
yes, exactly.
Well, we're going to tell the story someday about how he stood you up.
One day.
Again. He disappointed you again, which is a pattern with him.
He's disappointed me the entire time I've known him.
At every turn.
Yes.
You know what I think? I think we need to throw some 8x10s at him. We'll talk about that next week, right here on Something to Wrestle with Bruce Prichard.
Rock on!
Happy birthday, Bruce.
Thank you.
Hey guys, it's the hardcore legend Mick Foley here, and I need to call a quick timeout, a brief timeout, because I wanted to tell your listeners what I have been telling Foley is Pod listeners for a while about all the cool things happening over on adfreeshows.com.
An all-new edition of The Insiders is here, as CONRAD sits down with former WWE exec John Filippelli, who discusses his transition from the world of sports to pro wrestling, and his ultimate transition out of the company.
Every take was getting worse than the one before it. I said, you got to stop. You got to stop this. You got to calm down. Stop. Calm down. Stop yelling at people. Take it easy. Tell them exactly what you want, and we'll get through it. Which is, I have done 100 times since, and I would do 100 times more.
Yes.
But that was Vince McMahon, and you don't do that to Vince McMahon, particularly in front or around
other people. Yeah.
That was my mistake. I mean, if you want to call it a mistake, although I would do it, I've done it since, and I would do it again.
Referee Nick Patrick is answering your questions every other Monday on our new mailbag series.
When Hall and Nash was there, they were great workers, and they could compete at psychology. But they were cool, and a lot of people liked it, They were selling merch, and Hogan had heat. He had actually more heat than them. They had heat, but a lot of people liked it because they were cool. I was the only real character that they was calling it the other time that everybody hated. You know, yeah, everybody wanted to see me get. So it worked, you know. They had, you know, Saturday and night, you know, yeah, and so it worked, you know.
Tony and Conrad have taken their shenanigans in front of a live studio audience as they sat down live with ad-free shows members.
Hey, did you ever pet Jake's snake?
No, never did. I had a chance to in Chicago, but it was way too big and out of my league.
What's the right size snake for you?
One that just coils up and leaves me alone.
Yeah.
Have you ever oranged a Cassidy before?
Orange to Cassidy?
Yeah.
Would that be with one of those juicers, the juice machine, or you just squeeze it until all the juice comes out of it?
It runs down your leg or his leg. One or the other.
You gotta be specific here with your dumbass questions here, Cassio.
That's a sample. Best value in wrestling today. Sign up now. Ad-free shows.